In the apocryphal Gospel of Philippa, text so dangerous it was hunted to near extinction by the Roman Empire, there is a passage that has terrified and confused Orthodox scholars for centuries. It describes a very specific night. Jesus of Nazareth stood before his closest disciples, not in an open field, not in a synagogue, but in a sealed upper room. And in that heavy silence, he spoke a name. Not the name the world would come to know him by. Not the name that would be carved into marble churches, chanted in cathedrals, or used to wage crusades. He spoke a different name. His true name. And when he spoke it, the ancient Coptic text says something impossible happened. The atmospheric pressure in the room physically shifted. The disciples felt a high-frequency vibration move through their bones. And somewhere beyond the stone walls of that room, in geometric dimensions the human eye cannot perceive, the Archons, parasitic rulers of this artificial reality, trembled in absolute terror. This was not a prayer of submission. This was not a humble blessing. This was an acoustic frequency so devastatingly powerful that the architects of this false matrix could not withstand it. The early church fathers found this passage. They read it. They understood its implications, and they buried it. Why? Because if you knew what Jesus actually called himself, if you understood the quantum power contained in those exact syllables, the entire multi-billion-dollar structure of organized religion would collapse overnight. You would never need a priest again. You would never need to beg a distant God for mercy. You would never need permission to access the divine. Tonight, you are going to learn that name. Not as a history lesson, as a biological activation. Right now, wherever you are sitting, place your hand flat against the center of your chest. Feel the heavy, steady rhythm of your heartbeat beneath your palm. That rhythm is not just biology. It is the echo of something incredibly ancient moving through you. If you found this transmission tonight, it is not an algorithm at work. You were drawn to these coordinates in space-time. If you are one of the chosen ones, someone who has spent their entire life feeling an agonizing certainty that religion was hiding something profound from you, go to the comments right now and type, "I am ready." This is not just engagement. It is a sovereign declaration. Another awakened spark scrolling through the dark tonight will see it. What you are about to receive is not mere information. It is a key. 3 components. 3 syllables. 1 direct, unhackable line to the monad that the Archons cannot intercept. Let me take you back to that sealed room. Let me show you what the Empire tried to erase. The year was approximately 33 CE. Jerusalem was a powder keg of restless tension. The brutal Roman occupation had created a suffocating atmosphere of fear, taxation, and suspicion. But in a small, dimly lit room above a narrow, dusty street, an event was unfolding that had absolutely nothing to do with earthly politics or empires. Jesus had gathered his inner circle, not the desperate crowds who chased him for physical healing, not the curious onlookers who came for simple parables about seeds and sheep. He gathered only the pneumatics, those who possessed the spiritual hardware to hold the high-volt transmission he was about to release. The Gospel of Philip explicitly tells us that Mary Magdalene was present. So was Philip. In this intimate, heavily guarded setting, away from the ears of the Hylics, those entirely consumed by the material world, Jesus began to speak about his origin, his true identity, the name he carried before he voluntarily descended into this dense human form. You must understand something critical here. The name Jesus is not actually a name. It is a Hellenized, translated, and filtered title that has been deliberately diluted over to millennia. The man you know as Jesus was called Yeshua in his native Aramaic tongue. But even Yeshua was not the name that made the Archons tremble. That true name existed before human vocal cords were formed, before the earth cooled, before this material prison was constructed by the Demiurge to trap divine sparks inside decaying biological bodies. Here is where the theology gets extremely dangerous. The Gnostic texts describe a cosmic hierarchy that the mainstream church brutally purged. At the absolute apex exists the monad, the true source, pure, infinite, loving consciousness, without form, ego, or limitation. This is not the wrathful, jealous God described in the Old Testament. The Gnostics taught that the God demanding blood sacrifices and blind obedience is the Demiurge Yaldabaoth, a lesser, arrogant creator who mistakenly believes himself to be supreme. The Demiurge did not create your divine spark. He created the flesh cage that surrounds it, and he appointed the Archons to guard that cage, ensuring you remain in a state of spiritual amnesia, forgetting your royal origin. How do they keep you asleep? By harvesting you. The Archons are inorganic, parasitic frequencies. They feed exclusively on low vibrational emotional states. Fear, confusion, desperation, shame, guilt. Every single time you drop to your knees and pray from a place of begging, every time you approach the divine as a miserable, unworthy subject approaching a tyrant king, you emit exactly the dense frequency of loosh they need to sustain themselves. This is not an accident. Institutional religion was engineered this way. The physical posture of submission, the psychological language of unworthiness, the traumatic concept of original sin. All of it was masterfully designed to keep you acting as a battery, producing the exact emotional energy the Archons consume. But there is a frequency they absolutely cannot touch, a frequency that is invisible to them because it operates in a dimension above their realm of perception. This is the frequency of the monad, and certain names, when spoken with pure gnosis, inner knowing, carry this frequency embedded within their acoustic structure. Take a slow, deep breath. Right now, inhale through your nose. Feel your chest expand. Hold it, release it through your mouth, and feel the tension drain from your shoulders. You are beginning to shift your frequency just by listening to this truth. This is not your imagination. This is preparation. The early Gnostic mystics understood a profound law of quantum physics long before modern science. Names are not just convenient labels. Names are acoustic architecture. They are frequencies. They are containers of immense power. When you know the true name of an entity, you have direct access to its essence. This is exactly why the true name of the monad was never written down, and why the true name of the Christ consciousness was hidden from the matter. Because a name, when spoken with absolute recognition and sovereign authority, ceases to be a word. It becomes a skeleton key. In the Pistis Sophia, another explosive text the Empire tried to burn, Jesus explains this cosmic mechanic directly. He tells his disciples that he originated from the realm of the monad. He reveals that he descended through the planetary spheres controlled by the Archons without them recognizing him, because he cloaked his frequency. And he states that he carries a name that predates their very existence. When the Archons hear this specific name spoken by a human being who carries an active divine spark, they cannot interfere. They cannot intercept the signal. They cannot attach their parasitic cords. This is the specific teaching that got the Gnostics slaughtered. In the 4th century, Emperor Constantine required a unified, homogenized religion to control his vast, fracturing empire. At the Council of Nicaea, political elites gathered to decide which texts would become the official word of God and which would be erased. The Gnostic Gospels were not politely debated. They were violently condemned. The desert communities that preserved them were hunted by imperial soldiers. The manuscripts were thrown into bonfires. For over 1,600 years, this knowledge was lost to humanity, surviving only in the whispered lineages of secret societies. And then, in 1945, the earth gave it back. An Arab peasant named Muhammad Ali was digging for fertilizer near the cliffs of Nag Hammadi, Egypt, when his mattock struck a sealed red clay jar. Inside were 13 leather-bound papiros codices, 52 texts that had been buried since the 4th century by monks who knew the Orthodox bishops were coming to destroy them. These were not medieval forgeries. Carbon dating and rigorous linguistic analysis proved they were authentic early Christian writings, as old as the canonical Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The Church had told the world for centuries that these mystical teachings never existed. The sands of Nag Hammadi proved they lied. Among these texts was the Gospel of Philip. Among them was the Pistis Sophia, and hidden within them was the secret transmission regarding the true name of Christ, the name that was his before he was yet, the name that connects the human nervous system directly to the monad. But here's the critical warning that most esoteric seekers completely miss. Knowing the name intellectually does absolutely nothing. You can read it in a book. You can memorize the syllables. You can repeat it 1,000 times a day like a mindless parrot, and the Archons will just laugh at you. Why? Because the name only activates when it is spoken by someone who recognizes what they actually are. This is why the teaching was restricted to the inner circle. There are 3 types of humans in the Gnostic framework. The Hylics, entirely material beings with no divine spark. They cannot access the monad because they have no receiver for the signal. The Psychics, those with a dim, flickering spark. They sense something greater exists, but they rely on blind faith and external religions. They fill the mega-churches, praying without true power. The Pneumatics, the chosen ones. Those who carry a roaring, full divine spark that originated in the monad itself. If you are still watching this, if something deep in your gut recognized the title of this video, if you have spent your entire life feeling a profound, agonizing alienation from this world, knowing that religion was hiding the truth, you already know what you are. You are pneumatic. You carry the spark. And the name I am about to reveal will activate inside your biology in a way it cannot work for the sleeping masses. Before I give you the syllables, you must understand the physics of why it works. Not as a religious belief, but as quantum mechanics. The universe is entirely constructed of frequency. Every thought you entertain emits a specific vibration. Every word you speak sends an acoustic ripple through the fabric of space-time. The Archons are masters of this matrix. They have built an entire societal system through media, politics, and orthodox religion designed to keep human consciousness vibrating at the exact low frequencies they can harvest. When you pray in the traditional, institutionalized way, when you kneel, clasp your hands, bow your head and plead with a distant, judgmental God to spare you or bless, you are broadcasting a frequency that screams, I am small. I am a sinner. Unworthy. I need an external savior. The Archons easily intercept this low vibrational signal. They feed on your desperation, and they ensure your prayers never breach the atmosphere. This is exactly why millions of desperate prayers go seemingly unanswered. Not because the monad is cruel, but because the signal is intercepted by the middlemen of the astral plane. But there is another way to speak, a way that shatters the matrix, a way that does not ask, but declares, a way that recognizes rather than requests. When you speak from the frequency of absolute unity, when you address the monad, not as a groveling beggar, but as a sovereign spark demanding to return to its source, the Archons literally cannot perceive you. You become invisible to their radar. Your words travel on a high-frequency carrier wave far above their dense realm. The true name of Christ is not a magic spell from a fairy tale. It is a biological and spiritual recognition code. When you speak it with total gnosis, you are not calling out to a man in the sky. You are activating the dormant DNA inside yourself. You are remembering what the Demiurge traumatized you into forgetting. If you are prepared to receive this name, go to the comments right now and declare. Reveal the name. This is your conscious separation from the casual scroll. Take a deep breath. Place your hand firmly over your heart once more. Feel the warmth gathering in your chest cavity. What I am about to transmit to you was hidden in the dark for 1,700 years. Mystics were burned alive at the stake to protect it, and tonight, it passes into your possession. In the deepest layers of the Gnostic texts, the name that Jesus revealed to his inner circle was not Yeshua. It was not Christ. The name that caused the Archons to tremble was composed of 2 sacred, ancient elements that, when fused together, form a master frequency key. The first element is EYEH, pronounced A. This is the ancient Hebrew vibration meaning I am. It is the exact frequency the divine spoke to Moses from the burning bush. EYEH Asher, I am, that I am. This is not a title. It is the frequency of pure, unadulterated existence. The ultimate declaration of sovereign being that predates all physical creation. The second element is PHOS, pronounced phos. This is the ancient Greek word for light, but not the visible light of the sun or a fire. It is the light of pure consciousness. The Gnostics called it the first emanation of the monad. It is a light that vibrates so highly the Archons cannot even look at it without being blinded. When these elements are combined, the true name becomes EYEH PHOS. I am light. This is not a mere translation. It is an acoustic frequency. When spoken by a pneumatic with absolute recognition of their own divinity, it creates a toroidal vibration in the chest that resonates at the exact frequency of the monad. 2 words, 3 syllables. 1 skeleton key. The Archons tremble when EYEH PHOS is spoken because it reminds them of their ultimate limitation. They were created by the Demiurge. They are trapped in the material realm. But you carry a spark of the monad. You possess something the Archons can never have, never destroy, and never comprehend. Eternal, uncreated light. You have been brainwashed to approach the divine as something separate from yourself. You were taught you were born broken, stained by original sin. That was a deliberate lie, designed to keep you producing food for the parasites. You were not born broken. You were born with a piece of the infinite embedded in your chest. Here's your protocol for tonight. There are 3 mandatory components to speaking this name with power. Recognition. You must know you are a divine spark. You are not your earthly failures or your trauma. Authority. You do not beg. You speak as a spark addressing its source. The frequency of begging will get intercepted. The frequency of authority cuts through the veil. Declaration. You are not hoping for a connection. You are announcing that the connection already exists. Tonight, before you sleep, find a quiet space. Sit with your spine perfectly straight to align your central nervous system. Place your hand over your heart. Take 3 slow breaths, and with every exhale, blow out the toxic religious lies of unworthiness and shame. When you are completely settled, speak the name out loud. Let your vocal cords vibrate the air in the room. Say it slowly. EYEH PH. Hold the absolute recognition that you are not asking for a favor. You are announcing your return. You may feel a sudden, intense warmth spreading through your body. You may feel a heavy pressure release from your forehead. You may suddenly weep without knowing why. Do not analyze it. That is the activation taking hold. In the days that follow, watch the matrix glitch. Intrusive thoughts that used to paralyze you will slide off your mind like water. Situations that used to trigger massive anxiety will feel strangely neutral. You will literally feel archonic interference hit your energy field and bounce off. This teaching waited 17 centuries in the dark for you to find it. If this transmission activated your spark tonight, go to the comments and type the name EYEH PHOS. Let every other pneumatic see that the army of light is waking up. Subscribe to this channel, because the advanced teachings we are about to release go much deeper into the rabbit hole, and hit like to force the algorithm to push this truth past the archonic suppression. You now carry the weapon they never wanted you to find. 3 syllables. 1 direct line to the monad. Use it tonight. You are nomadic. You are chosen, and you have always been light.